Sarah is Director of Programs for the Richmond Sheriff's Department, both internal and external. The one program that she's going to share with us today has garnered not only national but international attention, and it's the REAL program, Recovering from Everyday Addictive Lifestyles. Having Sarah as a speaker was suggested by several people because people have learned about this program and its success, and we look forward to learning more about it as well. Sarah received her baccalaureate degree from the University of Virginia at Wise and earned her master's and PhD degrees from Virginia Commonwealth University. She's a member of Spring Run Presbyterian Church, where she's co-leader of the Young Mothers Bible Study. In addition to all she has on her plate, she has a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. Sarah, I really hope you have some phenomenal vitamins. Please welcome Sarah, Rebecca, and Tashana.
Good morning, ladies. It is wonderful to be here. Finally, the sun is shining and in a room with you all. It's truly an honor. So thank you so much for your confidence in what we do in the Sheriff's Office and for inviting myself and Rebecca and Tashana to be here with you today. I have a lot to share with you all, and I'm not going to keep you all day, so I'm going to try to cram it in, but make sense at the same time. But at the end, we are going to have time for any questions that you all may have, but feel free to stop me along the way if a question pops up. But I want to take you back to start about 8 years ago. I don't know how well you can see that. Let me slide over here. Yeah. So what? If you want to take my okay, perfect. There you go. Okay. So take you back about 8.5 years ago or so, I was working on finding a research subject for my dissertation when I was working on my PhD at VCU. And I was talking to somebody who works in the recovery field and has recovery houses, John Shinholzer, who is the CEO and the founder of the McShin Foundation. And he said, you know, we started this program in the Richmond City Jail, and it would be really great if we had somebody to evaluate it. And I said, well, sounds interesting to me. Let's see. My degree was in criminal justice, so I was up for the challenge. So the next week we were in Sheriff Woody's office meeting with him, kind of given the proposal, had never met the man before, and he said, okay. That was kind of a shock to us because this program was where you are looking at it, which happened to be the worst housing unit or tier in the Richmond City Jail. And John just knew him and his folks could come in and just turn it over, and I was this college student who said, this sounds like a great idea, let's study it. So the first time I walked in, I walked onto F2, which again is in the background, this horrendous picture of what the old jail looked like. And there was 120 men who were much larger than I am there to greet me. And so needless to say, I was just a little nervous and thinking, what have I gotten myself into? But really, from the moment I walked into that jail, was beyond pleasantly surprised at the reception and the respect and the appreciation that I had gotten. And I was met with stories like the one from Sean, who shared with me that he was in for trespassing. He was in a Section 8 housing community selling drugs that he should not have been in. But he was a felon and had 15 children and knew no other way to support them other than to sell drugs. And the stories kept going on, walking down the steps right beyond F2 into the female housing unit, meeting one of the first ladies who was pregnant and who spent most of her childhood locked in a bathroom while her mother was prostituting for money. And that's how she was raised, and here she is pregnant behind bars. And I actually still keep in contact with her today. And so after hearing these stories and really getting a better understanding, what started as really a way to get a degree ended in something that I thought, I feel like I can make a difference. I feel like I can help, at least a little bit. And so fast forward to this. we are in the beautiful Richmond City Justice Center right now, where we've been for about 2.5 years, sitting on basically the same property, but a new building. And so, there it is. So while it looks much more beautiful, much nicer, much more humane, the bottom line is the people are the same or similar, and the stories are the same and similar. And while nothing ever justifies illegal behavior or bad activities, we are able to get a better understanding of why people do what they do, and able to finally equip them with the tools necessary to be successful upon release. Whereas before, and the time is changing and things are evolving, but so much in the past has said, lock them up and throw away the key. They don't deserve anything. And while many do believe that, 95% of the people who are incarcerated in our community will be released back into our community. And so as Sheriff Woody always reminds us, it is our job and it is our goal to create better citizens and not better criminals, because they will be coming to our churches, our grocery stores, our movie theaters, our Walmarts, all of that. And so I know personally for me and my kids who are always with me when I'm not at work, I want those better citizens and not better criminals surrounding us. So that is really kind of the crux and our viewpoint behind why we do what we do, and really the passion behind how we do it. So this is just our formal mission statement, but really we are there to provide opportunities for change for anybody who wants to do something different in their life. Not everybody wants change, and that's just the unfortunate reality, but for those who want change, we are there to provide that change. So, as was mentioned, I am the program director at the Richmond Sheriff's Office, and so the internal program department is that vehicle and that mechanism to provide those opportunities for the men and women who are incarcerated. Everything is done internally through the REAL program, which is Recovering from Everyday Addictive Lifestyles. And what that is it's a behavior modification program where we work to equip them with the tools necessary to be successful upon release, while also looking at the behaviors so that we can address the behaviors that were associated with their criminality. I find that that's kind of rare when you're looking at most programs, whether they're in institutions or in the community, and really most programs will just focus on addiction, or maybe just focus on parenting, or just focus on anger management, but they don't give it kind of the holistic approach to address everything. And but the behavior modification piece does just that. And I think the best way that I can illustrate it, especially as we were just talking about the heroin epidemic that is going on, is I was talking to a reporter on the phone the other month, and she said, well, what are y'all doing in the Richmond City Justice Center to address the heroin epidemic? And I said, well, we've got this program, it's called REAL, here's what it stands for, it's behavior modification. And she politely, but kind of frustrated, said, well, that's great, but I'm asking about heroin. What are you doing about the heroin epidemic? And so I had to get down onto a different level and explain to her that if we take away the drug, that's great, but the behaviors are still there. And so it's just a matter of time until the drug comes back. And so we have got to address those behaviors if we want to be successful and effective in anything that we're doing. And so that is the approach of the REAL program. How do we do this? It is a loaded question, and it could take way longer for me to explain than we have today. But the biggest way that we do this is through, the research term is trauma-informed care. Basically what it is it addresses trauma and teaches you how to cope with it. And so we do this through what's called an ACE score, or Adverse Childhood Experience. So it basically, and I can send this test, this is kind of a popular thing for me to send out afterwards, but this is an ACE test up here. So I'm just gonna read through these questions, and if you can just keep track of your answers in your head. If your answer is a yes, give yourself a 1. If your answer is a no, give yourself a 0. So there's 10 questions. So at the end of this, your score is either gonna be between a 0 and a 10. So the first one, so you can just keep track on your fingers of how many ones, and then that'll be your total number. Did a parent swear, insult, put you down, humiliate, or make you afraid? 1 for yes, 0 for no. Did a parent push, grab, slap, throw something at you, or hit you? And this is all, I'm sorry, if you were under the age of 18, did this happen? Did a person 5 years older touch, fondle, or have intercourse with you? Did you feel that no one loved you or that your family didn't look out for each other? Did you feel you didn't have enough to eat, you wore dirty clothes, had no one to protect you, or your parents were too high or drunk to take care of you? Were your parents separated or divorced? Was your mom or stepmom pushed, grabbed, slapped, had something thrown at her, kicked, bitten, or threatened with a gun or a knife? Did you live with anyone who was a problem drinker or alcoholic or used street drugs? Was a household member depressed or mentally ill, or did a household member attempt suicide, or did a household member go to prison? So we all know that there are a ton of things in our life that could cause trauma, but research has shown that these are the top 10 areas that are the absolute worst trauma that a child could go through. Well, the average ACE score, so now you have your ACE score of whatever your number is between 0 and 10. The average ACE score for men incarcerated in the United States is a 7. So that does not take rocket science to understand the high correlation between childhood trauma and adult incarceration. Well, if you want to bring it back to the heroin epidemic, or just, I say it's a drug epidemic in general. It's not just heroin. That's just what the big attention is. Most often, if you really get to the root of why people are using drugs, it's to numb and it's to self-medicate. And as soon as your fix wears off, and it's a different amount of time depending on your drug, what do you have to do? You got to self-medicate again and again and again and again, and that's where the addiction sticks in. So once again, if we take away the drug, those issues that they are trying to cope with are still there. And that's what needs to be addressed. And so now that we have this really depressing picture, honestly, of what I just painted up here in the process that we take our folks through, and this takes a long time to get to this point. It's not done in 5 minutes or less like I'm doing with you all today. But once we get through that, and well, here's some stats, just other stats that are associated with the ACE score. I won't go through them all, but basically if you have a score of 6 or higher, you are determined to die 20 years earlier than somebody who has an ACE score that's lower. So that really shows you the toll that it takes on somebody's health and somebody's body. So how to overcome that? It's basically resiliency. When you are in a time of an adverse experience or a stressful situation, how do you react? How do you bounce back from it? And we all know there is no one who doesn't experience stress. There's no one who doesn't experience turmoil and hardships and trials and tribulations, but a lot of people handle it differently than others. And so for the people with the high ACE scores that are incarcerated, you pretty much know that their resilience level is very low. So when they have those situations, they don't know how to handle it. Most often, it's because of relationships. And you see right here in the latter half of the screen, basically factors of resilience are all associated with some type of relationship. Well, if you look at the traumatic experiences, that shows you they often didn't have relationships. A parent was in jail, so they didn't have them at the soccer field with them. The mom was strung out on drugs, so they didn't have somebody to talk to when something happened. And so they did not develop those resiliency factors like a lot of us in this room may have, and meaning that they weren't able to cope with those situations. So, as you see, this is a lot. And it is a lot to address. It's a lot to go through. But the biggest area of how that they can overcome this is working on the 42 resilience factors. And once they've mastered that, basically all of this negative that's over here is kind of washed away. And that's when they're able to move forward and have their resilience developed and really start working on behavior and coping and staying out of jail and not using drugs, but having other mechanisms to deal with issues that they may have. And so these are the 42 factors that our men and our women in the REAL program work on so that they can build up their resilience and get to the point where we need them and want them to be prior to release. So on the other side, that's the bulk of the behavior modification piece. On the other side is the preparation for release. And that's a lot more of the obvious of what everyone knows that needs to be done. So from reentry planning, do you have a place to live? Where's it going to be? What about transportation? What about bus tickets, the job, financial management, anger management, parenting? All of that is a part of the preparation from release, or for release that we do. All of this is done, obviously, through the REAL program, but how? It's voluntary to be in the program, but once you're in the program, it's mandatory to participate in all aspects of it. And it's really built to be their full-time job. Most people in jail don't have structure, and they haven't had structure before, and they haven't had discipline, and they've not had full-time jobs. So that is another training piece that we have to work on. I have to be at work at a certain time. I've got to be there for a certain amount of time. I can't leave early, generally speaking. Same thing with them. Their day starts at 8 a.m., not a minute later. You're a minute late, there's punishment for that. When they come out, even though they're on a pod where their cell is 10 feet away, they have to bring all their materials with them, just like I have to bring my materials with me to work. So it's really set up like that. We have sick days. Once they're there for 30 days, they accrue 1 day a month, just like how many people do in the workplace. So it's really getting their mind towards where it needs to be that productive member, that productive employee, once they get out. Oops. In addition, we have some special programs, and I'll say special dash voluntary. So now you have the mandatory side of everybody who's in the REAL program, men and women alike, what they have to do on a daily basis. For people who are working really hard, who are further in the program, who maybe are nearing release, we have some special activities that they can participate in that they will, maybe apply for, and then we will select based on behaviors. So I want to show you a quick video. Uh-oh. Maybe. I'm not quite sure where it went. Let me see if I can pull it up. So while I'm working on pulling this up, I will try to tell you what it is. About a year and a half ago, we had Lisa Ling come visit us. Lisa has a show on CNN called This Life with Lisa Ling. And we have a father-daughter dance in the facility, and that's what she wanted to focus on. But as you will see from this video, it is way more, you may not see in this video, but maybe you'll believe what I'm going to tell you. I swear it was pulled up right before I started talking. Here it comes, maybe fingers crossed. All right. So you will see from this video that it is way more. Oh my. The devil is really on our side today, isn't he? Or not on our side, should I say.
Yeah. Great. I don't think I've ever cried more on a shoot than when we were filming Fatherless Towns. After months apart, these men and their children will spend the next 3 hours together. Richmond, Virginia is a city where a lot of households are lacking men, particularly African American households. A lot of those men are locked up in correctional facilities. To keep their relationship alive, the city of Richmond is trying something extraordinary. A father-daughter dance in jail. They want to prove to their daughters that they are working really hard and trying really hard to become productive members of society.
Scared of not being successful for my family.
In some cases, some of these inmates had not spent as much time ever with their daughters as they did during this 3-hour period in which they had this dance. And the objective was to try and incentivize these men to not ever want to come back to jail and to be part of their daughters' lives. And that relationship between a father and daughter, to me, is one of the most important but yet underestimated relationships in society.
The fact is, okay, there is no me without you. No, Daddy.
The jail is trying to foster relationships with fathers and daughters so that they can be a positive influence on their girls. And getting an opportunity to witness this transformation in these men and the excitement, but also the devastation when they got to be with their daughters, but then watch their daughters walk out of the room, it really, I think, lit a fire under them. And it really propelled them in the deepest, most visceral way to want to be part of their daughters' lives. It was profound.
I know he's gonna keep trying, so he doesn't go back in there.
How do you know that?
I trust my father, and I trust that he's gonna keep trying.
So that's our father-daughter dance that we have annually. And have seen, obviously, very emotional, but great results.
This is the ultimate response.
So I'm the program director, not the director of technology, as you can see. My husband's the web developer of the family, so he gets on me. So kind of along in the same vein, if this short video will pop up for me, we had a tea party for our moms, and that was incredible. So much, and Becca is going to be speaking soon and share with you all. There's not a lot of opportunities for women who have been or are incarcerated, involved with the system, pregnant and maybe battle addiction. It's actually a very bad situation for the lack of resources. If I have a pregnant mom who's trying to do right, it is the hardest thing to do, find a place for them to live. So more often than not, it's the homeless shelter, truly, which is heartbreaking. And we're trying to develop some solutions because pregnant and homeless shelter just should never even be used in the same sentence. Not quite sure what is going on with this right now. So it looks like.
Congratulations, you've been selected.
Alright, so if y'all would just take my word for it that it was something that was incredible. Right here is just some of the pictures of the beautiful, beautiful day. But the most important part to understand is the reason that we do these types of activities is for the long-term change in a relationship. So just by having a simple event, which is definitely the cherry on top, so to speak, and very exciting, it's just that. And that is not actually going to contribute to the long-term, the likelihood of the long-term change. Actually, it could do more damage than good, especially as you look at the trauma. And so they're required to go through fatherhood or motherhood classes in order to be a part of it. We have co-parenting, so we actually bring the caregiver in. So the caregiver meets with our resident or inmate. Most often these are not the most healthy relationships between the baby's father and the baby's mother. And so we work on having that relationship kind of established and having a good understanding, and that's all done through a facilitated conversation. And all of our parenting, motherhood, fatherhood, co-parenting, all of those classes are through the Richmond Family and Fatherhood Initiative. So it's a great, great organization. I think the best fatherhood and motherhood curriculum that is out there run through the Richmond City Health District. And actually, Tashana, she's just been with us for about 3 weeks now. She was their motherhood coordinator and motherhood facilitator, and when I had an opening for a female program coordinator, she was at the top of my list. I did not know if it was going to happen. I didn't know if her boss, the head of RFFI, was going to bless it, but he absolutely did. And so Tashana is with us as our female program coordinator and has a ton to bring to the table, obviously. But despite all of this great stuff that I'm telling you about, and I think that we do, clearly there is still a ton of obstacles. Even the most motivated and desired person to change still faces society. And when they come out, society is not waiting, come on, let me give you a job, a house, a car, money, take care of your child support. No, society is actually there slamming all of those doors. Employers, I'm not going to hire you. You're a felon. I'm not going to hire you. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to rent to you because you're a felon. We're not going to do this. And so it's really every obstacle that is out there is stacked against felons. And we are working to try to curb that and try to educate people on the issues and things such as that. But as our program went on and as we were releasing more and more and more people back into the community, the phone rang more and more and more and more. And with issues. And I have a job interview. Do you have a suit that I can have? I don't have money for a bus pass. So what about this? What about that? And it's literally every obstacle. If you get out and you have no money, you don't have a cell phone, how do you get a job? Where are they supposed to call you? The local, pay phone on the corner? Well, that's not an option. And so it really is the most simplistic things that the answers are so obvious but so hard. And so because of this, and the lack of resources that are out there, we established Real Life. And so Real Life is officially a nonprofit organization, and it is our reentry side of the jail's REAL program. And so it's for the men and women who have come out of the program that need a little bit of help. Absolutely not a handout. We know we can't remove the obstacles, but we know that we can help them if they're willing to help themselves. And so that's what Real Life does, is just that, so that they can continue to have somebody to call on, they can continue to have that support. Real Life was not set up to reinvent the wheel, because we know that there is a lot of great services out there, many of which are listed right behind me that you all support. But sometimes they don't know about these services that are there for whatever reason. And so we will connect them with existing resources if it's there, but then Real Life will help fill the gap where there is gaps, because there's a lot of them. And so with that, we feel as if we can really prepare them to be the most successful. So that's us, Real, on both sides in a nutshell. But I wanted to now introduce you to Rebecca. She is actually a former resident or former inmate in the Richmond City Jail. She was a part of our program there, has been out, has been clean and sober for a couple years now. I'll let her share her story. I don't want to take your story away. But I have to tell you, maybe about a month ago, I got a text from her, and she's really gotten into woodworking and refinishing. And she said, I was talking to my kids and we want to start doing something different. She said, if I want to buy this furniture and refinish it and then donate a proceeds of what I make back to Real Life so it can help bless other people like she has been blessed since she's been out. So that's the latest project. She has this gorgeous buffet. We got the granite marble top donated for the top of it. So it's really great, but it's wonderful to not even know her, but to just walk next to her and see the progress that she has made and really put traction behind what I'm telling you today, and she's proof that it works. So with that, Becca, you want to come on up?
Stand behind here so I'll look thinner. Hi, how's everybody doing today? Good. I'm excited to be here, and I know for myself, when you're excited, your heart is open more, your mind is open more, and you are able to receive some really good information that way. Excuse my voice. I've had really bad allergies. I've been sneezing, so forgive me if I'm up here and I sneeze. And I want to say thank you to Ms. Scarbrough for inviting me here today. This is something that I really enjoy doing. And honestly, I never knew that I could speak in front of people until I was incarcerated, which is quite weird. You're probably thinking, how is that? I'll get into that. I want to explain a little bit about myself. My name is Rebecca Warner Wasaki. Wasaki is by marriage. I will be 33 October 10th, and I have 4 children, 17, 14, 7, and 6. I spent most of my life getting high and all of my 20s sticking a needle in my arm. It wasn't until 2012, April 19th, that was when I decided that I wasn't going to use again. Still in that process, if you do overcome the actual sickness and you stop using, you still can make bad choices. And resulting in me not being able to function in society because I never lived a normal life, I still ended up incarcerated even though I wasn't getting high. And that's when I met Ms. Scarbrough. When I first went in there, I had done a few days in jail, but I'd never done long term. And when I went in there, I was scared to death. I knew that I was going to get some time this time. I knew that I had burnt all my bridges and that was it. Well, at that time it was called The Belief, and now it has, become into the real program, and it's advanced in many ways. I'm very thankful for the first time I seen Ms. Scarbrough, and I was just telling her, I remember when she walked in the room and I was in the program and we, sat in a circle and was programming all day. And she walked in with the sheriff and I thought to myself, she is so gorgeous. She's so beautiful and elegant and she has an education and, it's like this thought came along me and said, that's something I want to be. I've spent my whole life in a bathroom. Almost all the McDonald's, Burger King's bathrooms that you can think of in the city, I have been in getting high and with my children at times. I lost my children and I thank God that I actually had my mother and was, able to have my children with family instead of taken away for good. That's a blessing, Again, she came in and I said, I really want to do this program. I want to learn these things. She offered a program along with a guy named Michael White. He's a comedian. And you had to really focus. You had to do cover letters. You had to do a resume. I had never done a resume in my life. Had no idea, had no work ethic, it never crossed my mind. And so she taught me very well how to do a resume. I was then able to help other inmates with resumes. I still can if you'd like. I probably need to update mine, but it probably looks a lot better now too. I was able to get my GED while I was in there, other certificates. I started writing poetry and never knew that I could write. I think that's when I realized that I had talents, and again, she was talking about woodwork. And now I had no idea that I could do woodwork. I hadn't really communicated much and been loving with my mother in a long time because I was running the streets. The detective had told her, you need to get life insurance, she's gonna die. And my mother did. And today my mother lives with me. She sold her home a couple months ago, and she's always owned her own home. So this will kind of tell you how much I've changed, because would you trust selling your home that you've owned all your life to move in with your recovering heroin addicted daughter? And it was kind of scary for me too, because somewhere in the back of my mind I think sometimes like, oh am I going to be able to do this for the rest of my life? This is not an easy path. It's not easy being a mother. My kids are all in my life. I have one that's going to graduate. She wants to be a physical therapist, and she plays volleyball. She has a game tonight, breast cancer awareness. I got to wear a bunch of pink, and my grandmother was a survivor. I have my 2 youngest, and they probably experienced the worst part of my addiction. I used while pregnant, and I think it's so important for you bringing up mothers being pregnant, because I've seen a lot of mothers come in pregnant. And what else I want to bring up is the fact that there's not a lot for women out here. And we need a whole community, and I'm so excited that y'all are here listening today, because some people don't understand how hard it is. I remember a time being pregnant with my daughter, and I was using. Okay, I mean, I was using hardcore, and I still beat myself up every day, and I know people judge me when I say it, but I have to say it. And you know, there wasn't nowhere to go. I can remember thinking, I don't want to be sick. You know, the worst part about the drug heroin is being sick for those few days. But then it's really not the worst part. It's once you get over that and you try to live life. But there was no place I could go. I cried. My sister was there. She took me to a couple places. I didn't have the money. I had nowhere to go, so my sister had to drop me off crying, and I had to go to the drug dealer. And I'll never forget that feeling. And so that's why I think once I went to the jail and I seen this going on, I jumped on it. I said, sign me up, please. And I did everything that they required me to do. Of course, I threw tantrums and fits, because when your mind starts to get clear, it's tough. It's almost like you're a child again, and you have to grow up again. And then when you're thrown back into the world to be a mom, to have a job, to have rent, and by the way, I've been in my home for almost 7 months, rent to own, in a beautiful neighborhood. I have my children there, and those are the blessings that you get when you stay clean. Hear my voice, I'm sorry, it sounds terrible. I wanted to point out too, it's not up there, but the behavioral modification. When you're speaking about it, Ms. Scarbrough, it just, everything makes so much sense to me. And then you know how she said, count on your fingers how many, and if it's over 6, you die 20 years younger. That's scary for me, because every one of those questions is a yes for me. There is not one that's not. And so I think I spent all this time messing up and ruining my life, and now I'm trying to make up for it, you know? And it gets hard, it gets frustrating. I don't know how to be a mom sometimes. My kids are crying. My dog is pregnant, about to have puppies. She is, I said, please don't let her have puppies while I'm here speaking to the ladies today. Oh my goodness. Oh man, you know, I'm nervous about that. This is just life. Real life shows up. You know, getting your ID, car insurance. You know, stuff that you don't do all your life. The easiest part really is once you get through the sickness and you're not using anymore. That's the easy part. It's continuing to not use, because you have mental health issues also. As far as, for me, the trauma. As I just said, I answered all those questions, yes. Had I ever talked to anybody about it in my life? No. Never, until I got locked up in the city jail. And then I was able to express it through poetry, and then read it out loud, and then not be ashamed to come and tell you that I was this junky, horrible person that was raped for 12 hours by 2 men, or that I was almost beaten to death. You know, I am really blessed to be here and to be alive. And you know, my kids, you know, kids will be kids, teenagers will be teenagers. My son asks me all the time, because one of the biggest things for me now is to give back by speaking to the community in any way I can help someone if they're struggling and they just need an ear, you know, someone to listen. And I am somebody that likes to give to the homeless, you know, if I have clothes, whatever it may be, anything I can do. And I have a teenager that says, I just don't understand you, Mom. Why do you care about people? And you know, I just kind of leave him to be where he's at. And I just know for myself, it's the way that I stay clean. Because every time I can help somebody, it's really helping me. And that's what the program's taught me to do. Look at what Ms. Scarbrough is doing. You know, she has no idea the impact that she actually has in my life. And a lot of people don't. Another thing, you know, is when you look at the news, you constantly see heroin overdoses. I have lost many friends that I've grown up with to this. And it could have been me, you know. And I thank God that I'm here to be able to say that I lived through that. But what you don't see on the news is big communities and people in the jail in these programs that really want to change, that are really putting in work. You don't see that on the news. It's amazing. It gives me a feeling inside that it excites me so much. I wish everybody could experience this and get to know these people, because we always say they're felons, they're ex-cons, and trust me, a lot of times I'm judged and I don't get chances. You know, I don't. But I keep pushing no matter what, because why? This program has taught me to. You don't give up. You talk to people. It takes a community. It takes every one of us in here to help somebody. It's like you have to lift them up off the ground, and they're extremely, extremely heavy, and they're fighting it in a way, but they want to rise back up. They want to be helpful. They want to be loved. You were mentioning, you know, like the I love you word and things like that. You know, I had been in a program before where it was just like, do this, do this, do this, do this. For me, from my experience with the program, I was able to get my GED, and I teared up when I seen the father hug his daughter just now. When I was in there, they allowed my 2 oldest children to come in and witness me get my GED. And at the same time, it was scary because I thought, they're coming into jail, you know? I haven't even really had that relationship that I should with them. But the smiles on their face was amazing. They were so excited that mommy got her GED and that I was trying to do something better. You know, and I think that's a big deal. No, it's not going to change somebody, and it doesn't mean that they're going to get out and do the best that they can, but it's reinforcement that they're loved and that they still possibly have a chance. You know, do you understand? I want to read something for you guys. Again, my voice. Probably going to lose it by Thursday. We have another conference Thursday. Today's October 4th, right? Well, I'm not going to read October 4th. I'm going to read tomorrow's because I really like it. It says, ask for mercy, not justice. Many of us have difficulty admitting that we caused harm for others. We cut away our justifications and our ideas of being a victim. Our lives are progressing nicely. Things are going good. And each year in recovery brings more materials and spiritual gifts. We may have a little money in the bank, maybe a little, my kids take all my money, a new car, or a committed relationship. We have self-confidence, and our faith in our higher power is growing. And for mine, it's tremendous because I never believed, never. Then something happens. Someone breaks into our new car and steals our stereo, or the person we're in the relationship with becomes unfaithful. Right away we feel victimized. Where's the justice, we wail. But if we take a look back on our own behavior, we may find that we've been guilty of doing what's just been done to us. We realize we wouldn't really want justice, not for ourselves and not for others. What we want is mercy. We thank a loving God for the compassion we've been shown, and we take the time to appreciate all the precious gifts that recovery brings. Just for today, I will pray for mercy, not justice. I am grateful for the compassion I've been shown and will offer mercy to others. I thought that was the perfect reading for today. Now, all the readings are great, but I try to read, and life goes on, and you know, when you have kids and you're running around and you're doing things, you don't always get to read. But this is just for today. This is actually an NA book, and they recommend you to read one every day. And whoo, it's the truth here in this book. I'm trying to see what else I can really cover. I think I covered it pretty good. I hope you guys enjoyed what I have to say. I hope that you see the proof is in the pudding. You know, everybody always says, what does an addict look like? She's right here. A recovering addict, though. And thankful, and I love your beautiful faces, and you're gorgeous, and I would love to come back and see you guys. Thank you.
So now you all know why I feel like one of the most blessed people in the whole entire world is because I get to work with Becca and other people like her and really be blessed. And it's amazing that I gain so much more every single day from working with people like Becca than I think that I could ever give them. And hopefully you all saw that today with her. But does anybody have, I know we've kind of gone over, but is there any questions that anybody has? Yes, ma'am.
I think I saw y'all on 60 Minutes or 48 Hours last year.
That might have been Lisa Lang.
It could have been the Lisa Ling. We've not been on either of those.
Where I saw the Richmond jail.
Okay, yeah, it was the Lisa Ling. It was an hour-long show that this was just a 2-minute clip from.
So is there one high school in Chesterfield, Henrico, Hanover, or Richmond where more of them are coming to the pockets of it, or is it all over the city?
Honestly, it's all over. If you look in Richmond, you know, we have a lot from Armstrong, but we have a lot from all over. If you look in Chesterfield and in the counties, it's a lot of places that you don't expect. Especially if you look at cocaine. Most cocaine addicts are actually middle-aged white soccer moms, with which most people have no idea. The stories of the dealers that I have in the program, of who they sold to, one of them I'll never forget, he said he would go out to Wyndham and Twin Hickory, and that's where he would sell. And he said, I couldn't believe it. He said, they were throwing away their life for what I was trying to achieve. And he said that he could never understand why somebody, but that just shows there's always the issues. So you can't pinpoint, it's really everywhere. Yes, ma'am.
Becca, how is that little youngest child that was born while you were using? Is she okay?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. I thought about that, and I actually wanted to say that and didn't get a chance. She's wonderful. She is the smartest little princess ever, who is the baby, and as you know, when you're the baby and you're the girl, you just get your way and spoiled. And she's achieving academically very well, and I thank God for that. And thank you for that question, because that was a big concern of mine. I was scared to death, you know, so thank you.
We had a meeting once and we saw, I think his name was Dr. Coogan from VCU, and his men, wrote Writing Our Way Out, memoirs from jail. Is there a parallel for women?
Not of that book from our facility, no.
But I mean, is there something that the women could, you mentioned writing poetry, I thought, yes. Is there something that the women could tap into and sort of do not the same thing, but their own thing?
Sure, there's absolutely. We are working on a couple of those projects right now. As far as the writing and the poetry and the females telling their story in a similar vein. We also are doing it through music. We're the only jail that we know of in the United States that actually has a recording studio. And so music is very, very therapeutic. And so our guys and girls work in the studio quite frequently. We're actually working with a well-known band, Arrested Development, on a album that's going to come out solely. It's going to be written by people that are in our program, men and women both, and then be co-recorded by our residents and the band. So I was actually on the phone yesterday with A&E, possibly about covering it and making that whole project a docu-series. So we're working along the same lines, but not exactly like his book.
Do you have a social media presence, like a newsletter, that the community can say, oh, look what's going on, I didn't know that?
We do. We have a monthly e-newsletter, which actually my September one is a couple days late, but it's going out as soon as I get back to my office this afternoon. And then on Facebook, we're very, very active. A lot of both what we do internally in the programs, but a lot of the public service type announcements of raising awareness and those sorts of things. So it's under the Real program. Yes, ma'am.
What can we do to help you?
I have cards and brochures and information I'm happy to leave with you. Monetary donations are always fabulous because that helps us, especially with real life, to be able to provide those reentry services. But even from there, prayer is a huge thing. Just praying that we will touch the hearts and the minds of those that we work with, and then pray for the staff too, because it's a hard job sometimes, and there's definitely some disappointments that sometimes are discouraging. So prayer is awesome, and then volunteering is another thing. Whether it's tutoring or a budget coach or maybe mentoring one of our ladies when they get out, so you can walk alongside them in that type of capacity. So there's multiple avenues that are out there. So thank you for asking that. Anything else? Well, thank you all so much. We appreciate you having us today.